What's happening here? This is yesterday in Mexico. Well, this is a labor union. This is a teachers union. They are angry at tax breaks for private schools. And so the union had everybody take to the streets. 20 protesters, 5 police officers were injured in Mexico. This is now on our border. What an inspiration. And as usual is the case is, while nowhere near as far down the road we are here, we're not going in the right direction. The most typical source for the beginning of these protests, of course, the unions, and their often radical leadership. They're not happy. After spending $400 million, almost $500 million to get Obama elected, they are now warning him that unless things change, they might not have as much money to send his way in 2012. So what are they doing? They're taking to the streets. Here they are, taking to the streets. Oh, where? In Madison, Wisconsin. Oh, yeah, that's right. That's the birthplace of progressivism, isn't it? Yeah, it is. In Wisconsin, the teachers union are threatening to shut down the schools by calling in sick all at once to protest moves made to close a budget shortfall. The protesters in Wisconsin are looking to Egypt for inspiration. This comes from the Capital Times. Quote, "The success of the grassroots uprising in Egypt in toppling strongman Hosni Mubarak is a source of inspiration. Protests become contagious." I'm just looking at that again. Source of inspiration for many of those who brainstormed Tuesday in Madison about resistance to attacks on U.S. workers in several states. The rallying cry, "Fight like an Egyptian." Now here's the really bad part. Who's being dragged along for this ride? First of all, union workers, are you revolutionaries? Do you want to live like the rest of the world? Are you a revolutionary? Because your union bosses are. Make no mistake, they are. Now, you're being dragged along and your money is being used. Is this the wild ride you want to be on? You have to choose, and you better choose now. But who is being dragged along? Useful idiots? Our children. Look at this video from protests in Wisconsin. Kids marching have no idea whatsoever what they're even marching for.
Teachers brought us here today.
For what? What are you guys protesting? Are you testifying or?
You know, I don't really know. I guess we're protesting today.
We're trying to stop whatever this dude is doing.
Lenin called students useful idiots. It doesn't matter when the ends justify the means. By the way, guess who is praising the protesters? The Nation. The Nation. Oh, there it is. The Nation. That's the home of Francis Fox Piven. Which brings us back to our universities and back to Egypt. Do you remember I told you at the beginning of the program, I showed you the pictures, and I told you about a woman who is being raped in that crowd on Friday. A woman who has sexual assault, an American. How is that tied to universities? Well, a fellow at NYU has stepped down now after the sexual assault of the American in Egypt that we mentioned earlier. This hardcore leftist saw this American as too pro-war for his liking, so he celebrated her sexual assault by 200 men. After joking about the attack on Twitter, he mentioned that the sexual assault, somebody mentioned the sexual assault wasn't really funny. He responded, "Well, it sort of depends on who it happened to. Sometimes we have to find humor in the small things." He went on to say that he had ran out of sympathy for her and he was rolling his eyes at all the attention she would be getting. After being blasted on the internet, he resigned today from NYU and has apologized. Isn't that nice of him? How many more radicals do we have to have in our universities before we say enough is enough? And while all of this is going on, come with me over here, please. While all of this was going on, this guy, Mahmoud Ahmadinejad, and this guy, the Ayatollah Khamenei, which is not to be confused with this guy, the Ayatollah Khomeini. This guy tried to ban people in this sect because this guy 1979, said these guys and people like them were way too dangerous. He killed the 12ers, if you will, and said, you can't be a part of this at all. The 12ers. Well, there's a new announcement that come out this week about the 12ers from this guy and this guy that I think America and the rest of the world should pay attention to because it's evil. And we have that next. There's a breaking report today that could turn out to be huge. According to Israelis, the Israeli foreign minister, Iran is sending out 2 of their warships now through the Suez Canal to Syria. That has never, ever been done in the history of the Islamic Republic, established in 1979. Since a bitter rift formed between Tehran and Cairo. In fact, on Friday, the chairman of Iran's Armed Forces Joint Chiefs of Staff warned the Egyptian army against the threat posed by Israel in the Suez Canal. He underlined that the Egyptian army should be prepared to maintain Egypt's territorial integrity and its Islamic honor. With Mubarak gone and peace with Israel in question, this could signal trouble because maybe Iran is trying to cozy up to Egypt. We do know that they would just really like to vaporize Israel and destabilize. Well, why does it work together to overturn stability and destabilize Europe and the rest of the world? Some experts also say that Iran hasn't had the naval capacity to have a presence in the Mediterranean until recently, but supposedly they're on their way now to dock in Syria for a year. Why now? Not 6 months ago or a year ago? How close are we to a direct clash? Is anybody really putting pressure? Is that what this is? This move would put Iranian vessels right next to Israel. And the Israeli foreign minister said that this was, quote, a provocation that proves Iran's nerve and self-esteem is growing day to day. He also warned that Israel could not ignore these provocations forever. Said the ships would be going through the Suez Canal as soon as tonight. So what are Iran's intentions? Well, let me show you a couple of things. The Islamic Unity Conference is happening between the 19th and 21st in Iran. The Islamic Unity Conference. What is this? This is 500 Sunni and Shia scholars. Remember, these two sects really don't like each other. 500 Sunni and Shia scholars. And then 250 others from 57 countries. And what this conference is to say, you know what, if we all work together, we can have a profound impact. An Islamic unity, Islamic state, a caliphate. Let's all come together and work together. Now, there's something else that you need to know. And Tiffany, if you can give me the quotes. First of all, I want to show you the quote from this man. This is the reason why, quite honestly, Joe Carey, who is my chief researcher, started to work with me a few years ago. Because I was watching over at CNN in a newsroom, standing a bunch of journalists, and I heard Mahmoud Ahmadinejad say this. Watch. Show me the, I don't want any of that. Show me the.
Hasten the arrival of Imam al-Mahdi and grant him good health and victory, and make us his followers and those who attest to his rightfulness.
Okay. I said to Joe, I called him up one day and I said, Joe, he wasn't working for me. He was just doing some stuff. He was an attorney, big fancy pants down in Philadelphia. And I said, Joe, could you do me a favor? Could you find out who the 12th Imam is? And could you compare him, please, to the Antichrist for Christians? And he thought that I was crazy. And he called me a couple of weeks later and he says, okay, how did you know? And I said, know what? And he said, how did you know? They don't exactly line up, but they're awfully darn similar. The 12th Imam appears to be the bad guy from the book of Revelation. I want you to understand, this guy is the Ayatollah Khamenei. This is the Ayatollah Khomeini. This guy was the guy from 1979. He thought people that believed in the 12th Imam, and they called themselves 12ers because he wanted to hasten the return of the promised one. These guys were too dangerous for the Islamic State. Got it? Really dangerous. Well, here's what's happened in the last couple of weeks. This guy says now for the first time that he's been in touch with the with the promised one. He said he's been in touch with him, and he's alive and well. I mean, he fell into a well in the 10th century, but now he's come back, and he's telling him that he is now the spokesperson for the 12th Imam. He has just issued this statement. He issued this on Monday. The final move has begun. We are in the middle of a global revolution managed by the dear 12th Imam. A great awakening is unfolding. One can witness the hand of the Imam in managing it. Here's why you need to know. How do you hasten the return? His return is hastened only by the world being washed in blood. If you are a 12er, remember, this is why this guy said these guys are too dangerous, because they believe they can bring it on. It's like Christians saying, hey, let's bring on the return of Jesus. What do we have to do? Well, why don't we just put a stamp on everybody's hand or a chip under their skin? That'll bring Jesus back. It's crazy talk. Chaos reigns. That's what Ahmadinejad is trying to make happen. That's why the Ayatollah Khomeini said no, the one who returned from exile to lead Iran in 1979 into extremism. He said they're nuts. In this particular sect of Islam, not only do they believe that the 12th Imam will return and return with widespread Islam, but they go a step further. They believe they can hasten his return. Just like any crazy Christian that thought, we can bring the second coming of Christ. It's crazy. It's dangerous. You may not believe it, but I believe they do. This is a new step for him to say this is all being managed and the Mahdi has come back from the well is not good news. Western officials believe that the Iranian warships might be involved in supplying radical Islamic groups in Yemen with weapons. So again, the question, why now? Why now? What is really happening with Iran? I go back to the Ayatollah Khomeini, supreme ruler of Iran, claiming now to be in contact with the 12th Imam, and that he in fact is directing these events. Could this be a provocative move by Iran to hasten some sort of showdown? This is an extraordinarily dangerous game. And we are playing it with the world entering more and more chaos every day.